The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Monday in the Riv after Thanksgiving, and everybody stuffed their faces, and our illustrious mayor sent out his dismissive Thanksgiving message, which was more a political attack.
Yes, it was.
On people than a Thanksgiving message. So.
And if you read the Weekend Flush,
you did a great job.
You would have seen. I quoted him directly.
Yeah.
So that it can't be. That's not what I said.
Yeah. Well, there are a whole people. Look. I'll say I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving, including the people I disagree with. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, our mayor cannot. As he said, he's running to elevate people, but he likes to demean people. That was an attack on enemies, of his perceived enemies. So I'm going to remind them of a few things. You did quote it in a Weekend Flush, too, but, you know, he calls people self-appointed watchdogs. Well, we have to be watchdogs because we're commissioned to do that by our Constitution and by our Declaration of Independence, because I hate to explain this to you again, Paul. I don't know if they took civics, if you took civics, but if you did, you probably flunked it. But the reality is that you represent all the people of Fall River, not just the ones you like or the people who you agree with, because you are a typical Biden Democrat. Anybody that disagrees with you, you want to label them, eliminate them, have no discussion. You do everything behind closed doors like you're doing with this new appointment. City councilors have to go up and talk to you individually. You won't release the resume, no transparency. But you do not want to deal with anybody as your enemy. No, they're citizens of the city of Fall River who you were elected to run. And in the best interests of all the citizens, not just the ones. What's the next step? Anybody that's not a Red Sox fan, you don't get, you get higher taxes? I don't know, because that was uncalled for. When we left before Thanksgiving, we wished everyone a happy Thanksgiving, not just the people who agree. And we never say agree with this. We say, listen to what we've got to say. We'll get to that on the next piece of this show about statistics.
And do your own research.
And do your own research,
yeah.
Exactly, as we do. Because most of the things we do, if it's not our opinion, we will have facts. So let me just, and I'll wrap this up because it's not even worth discussing when you have such a mayor that is so demeaning to the people who he disagrees with. I'm surprised he didn't end that Thanksgiving message by reiterating what he said before. If you don't agree with me, go jump in the Taunton River. Because he has no use for anybody. Only the people in the North End, I mean. He ignores everything. Remember, they had the audacity to go before the council and say 63% of this city is poor as an excuse to put new apparatus in the place you need it the least, in the North End, where all the rich people live and is the lowest incidence of fires. But then we're not going to worry about giving affordable housing to the 63% of the people. But let me just remind you of this. I'll tell you where it is. See if you can guess, all you Cooganites. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. This should be a tip-off, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute a new government. These are some of the things, and just in case, I don't want you to tax your hands-on brain trying to figure it out. So this is from the Declaration of Independence. But I'm going to give you a few of the reasons that these self-appointed watchdogs who created this country, they're not self-appointed, by the way. We're appointed by the Constitution because we run the government. So that just for the record, Paul, Study your civics. This is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. When we talk, you don't have to agree with us, but the fact is you're supposed to listen because we are the government. Not you, we are the government. This is some of the things they accused King George of. He refused to assent to laws. Wow, does that sound familiar? To hell with city ordinances that I don't have to pay my staff. I don't care if the city council didn't approve them and the law says they have to approve it. I'm paying them anyway. He has refused to assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. Well, he's already violated that one. So we got a right to be a watchdog, I guess. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of the people. And those people will relinquish the right of representation. So, you know, you won't see him enforce the ordinance against picking up private trash. And we're still continuing. And the outlaw city council, except for maybe one exception, or maybe two at the most, is allowing illegal activities and actually funding them. So don't give me that crap, Paul. You are from the school department. You do everything in the school department behind closed doors, and nobody ever knows. Mr. Hands-on Mayor. You like to have acronyms, SOARs, self-appointed watchdogs.
Yep.
SOARs. Well, I got a acronym for you, Paul. MENO. You know what MENO's for? You'll know where it fits after I give it to you. Mayor in name only. You're a MENO. You're a Dino. Democrat in name only. And there are rhinos, and now we have a MENO. We have a MENO in charge. The hands-on mayor that we can't find his fingerprints on Malone. We can't find his fingerprints on anything.
John Perry.
John Perry. Oh, his fingerprints are all over that, but he didn't get it done. I'm going to fire him. I'm going to fire him. I'm going to fire him. And then it was, let's make a deal. You know, all the other issues, the assaults in the schools, the rapes, attempted rapes in the schools, all these things have happened. Never any public debate on them. And you're going to disparage people. What are the other one? What was that other one you referred to? People who don't participate.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, Paul, did you ever think that these people might be so poor that they have to work 2 or 3 jobs to pay their rent and buy food? Maybe when you were looking over the shoulder of somebody feeding somebody that couldn't afford a Thanksgiving meal, you would have figured that out. But you didn't, did you? Because you're up there with your rich friends going, this city's beautiful. We're worth $700 billion dollars, because that's how we measure whether the city is good. We don't do it statistically. Who cares about statistics? We don't care if 63% of the people are poor. We don't care that we have one of the highest poverty rates in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for our citizens. You don't care about that, Paul, do you? You only worry about putting labels on people. Listen, labels are BS. Remember, if the British would have won the Revolutionary War, all our patriots would have been executed
For treason.
as traitors. Labels are in the eyes of the beholder. The reality is, if the state of Israel would not have been given that territory, Menachem Begin, rather than being a hero, would have been executed as a terrorist.
That's right.
The bottom line is everybody in Fall River deserves to be heard, regardless of their opinion. That's the way governments move forward. And that Thanksgiving assassination attempt, political rhetoric was totally uncalled for, and it shows that you're not even a decent politician. See, if you had a half a political brain in that squash of yours, you would have pretended, like politicians always do. Oh, I feel your pain, Bubba said. I feel your pain. Yo, Martha's Vineyards feels the pain of the immigrants till they get there. We all feel your pain. But no, You did a hatchet job on anybody that disagrees with you. You know, if you were a half apology, you said, even though I disagree with them, I hope they all have a great Thanksgiving, and I hope they all hit the lottery, and blah, 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 blah. Even though you didn't mean it. You can't even do that. You should, and expose the real Paul Coogan. You used to like to say to people, come on, don't you want to go to heaven? Paul, you're not going to go to heaven doing what you do, demeaning people who disagree with you. Doesn't some other publication that maybe not statistically accurate say, let he who is without sin cast the first stone? Paul, when you get to the pearly gates, St. Peter might open up the trap door if you keep going the way you are. But that's all I got to say about that, because that was disgusting. It was disgusting.
It was. And I'll tell you now, why do we need self-appointed watchdogs? Because we do not have a government that is transparent.
And not doing their job.
That's right. And when you see them do things that are illegal, but they get away with it, of course we're going to be watchdogs. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's happening. And it's amazing how the laws and the ordinances and the charter are only good when it suits them.
Yeah. You articulated that very well in a Weekend Flush when you talked about some of these issues. And the reality is that we are the government, and even if they're doing their job, government is supposed to be checks and balances.
That's
but
right.
But the new deal, the Democratic deal, is everybody's going to march in lockstep. Now, we have a city council who has approved illegal spending of money in violation of ordinances. So you think that we're just going to leave that alone as concerned citizens, as people who are supposed to be the government? We are the people who are speaking up, because our government, as CJ said in the flush, is not doing its job. Mm-hmm. We are not protecting the people of this city. So with that, let's get on to the next little attempt, I guess.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about what was discussed last week before Thanksgiving on another show with Paul Gauvin from the police department. And he said that last year at this time, we had already had 40 shootings. Mm-hmm. And this year, we only have 26. We're down 35%. And I'm not saying that's wrong. And at no time have we ever said on this show that we're more dangerous or we're got a higher number of shootings or any of that, because we didn't have those numbers, so we wouldn't say that. But now that we have those numbers, that's what we can say. The problem has been that the numbers we get for reporting on crime in Fall River come from the FBI. And they get their reports from the city government. So if the numbers are wrong, somebody's not doing their job correctly.
Probably, is he implying that the FBI, I believe he also said in an interview that, you know, there are lies, damn lies, and who cares about statistics?
Yep.
So, listen, with all due respect, and let me start this by saying, look, nobody respects what the police do more than I do. They have a thankless job, and they're doing the best they can. And nobody can eliminate crime. Listen, we're not Paul Coogan. We didn't walk around in the academic bubble our whole lives. I was on a line in public safety. I understand what the police are up against, because we had the same fundamental problem. I saw many people who applauded firefighters or something when they saved a life, and then the next day they're driving by the fire station saying, you lazy bums, all you do is sit around, blah, blah, blah. Same thing with police, you know, when they need you. Also, the reality is that firefighters and police officers, and I'm obviously with police officers, I'm making an assumption. You shouldn't make assumptions, but I think this assumption is a fairly safe assumption, that we would love to have no crime in this city, just as we would like to say, people used to say, you know, you guys sit around. No, we don't sit around. Fires and when you're sleeping. Reality is, you think we would like to see people lose their lives and property You think we wouldn't, but you can't. You can't ever eliminate crime, and you can't ever eliminate. You don't think police officers would like to have a city where the only thing we got to worry about is maybe public urination after somebody gets
Mayberry, RFD.
yeah, Mayberry RFD.
Yeah.
And as a medical professional, I mean, you worked in hospitals. You
I've
worked in
seen more
emergency room.
traumas in the ER than anything else.
Don't most medical professionals wish everybody was healthy?
Yeah.
But they're not. This is ridiculous. This is what it says. I brought them back in. Here's the Massachusetts symbol. Here's the 10 most dangerous cities with the update. And this is what it says. This examine Massachusetts' most dangerous cities. Our research used the FBI Uniform Crime Reporting Statistics. So where do they get those statistics from? They get them from the cities and towns. So, you know, I understand, but what Chief Gauvin did was take a piece, and you know the old saying, figures don't lie, but
Liars can figure.
Manipulating. That one fact, this was based on reports on violent crime and property crime. So there are other methods of violent crime, okay? And while I respect he was probably told to do that by Paul, for all we know. But the reality is it smacks of it by trying to brand other people as, oh, they're not reporters. They're not journalists. Well, guess what? Mark Monroe, Dion is not a journalist anymore either. As far as I know, he doesn't work for a newspaper.
He's an independent writer now.
Yeah, but he doesn't work for it. So does that, what is he, a pseudo? It's like if you get a blog, does that make you a journalist?
It's kind of like a stringer.
And who cares about journalists anyway? Look at the propagandists. It took CBS 2 years to figure out the Hunter Biden laptop was real. Journalism today is more propaganda. We're not journalists. This isn't journalism. This is reading an FBI, a Federal Bureau of Investigation statistics.
Not that they're credible.
Not that they're credible. And, you know, the reality is, with all due respect to the chief and the job they do, because they're out there every day, and I respect them. But listen, don't you believe, and look, he's invited, just like we invited Paul to come on his show, and we will talk about it. And I can say with virtually no doubt that he would say he wishes Fall River was in the bottom 10, 341 to 551.
He made it clear. He made it clear in his interview that, you know, in the perfect world, there would be no crime in Fall River.
Yeah.
But in reality, they know there is.
Well, yeah, but you know the problem with that generalization is when people come to look at a community, they don't call the police chief. They look at statistics like from the FBI.
That's right.
So do you truly believe that being in the top 10 ahead of cities like Boston, Springfield, Worcester and Springfield are the two largest cities, and Boston are the three largest cities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And we're ahead of all of them. And do you really believe that we should be number one in crime? Because obviously there's more crime in Boston, but when they take those statistics, it's based on per capita.
Right.
It's a ratio and proportion. Do you believe that this helps Fall River when people go on and say, let's research Fall River? Well, 3 years in a row, most dangerous city in Massachusetts. Yeah, okay, there's been less shootings or shots fired. But when people walk out on the street, this is about violent crime and property crime. There are a whole bunch of different crimes. Isn't it about, do the people in Fall River generally feel it's safe in Fall River? I don't think so. If you get out of the north end, a lot of people, a lot of elderly people, a lot of people don't go out after dark. They don't go to certain areas of the city. Is that the police fault? No. But there has to be a plan. There has to be something to try to basically imply that this means nothing. The reality is we're the 10th largest city in this state. we should not, why don't we try to get in the bottom 50% of crime? I'm not saying be the safest city in Fall River. Why don't we get to be, we can't crack the top 200 in education. Why don't we try to get education to be one of the 10 best educated cities in the state of Massachusetts?
And that
get
good
crime
education
down to can't crack the top 200.
When you have good education systems and good education performance in a city or town, guess what happens? Crime
goes
rates go down.
Well, I hate to tell you this, CJ. You must have read this report, because it talks about that. It talks about one of the problems with crime, and one of the problems is education. The education, and that's what it is. It's about why this stuff happens, and and one of them is education,
right?
Obviously. So look, it's not a simple question. It can't be answered easily. Crime will always exist, just like fires will always exist, just like sickness will always exist. But trying to almost explain it away by, hey, look, it's just a fact of life. Well, you're right, it is a fact of life. But don't you think that we should be looking to invert those things? Shouldn't we be in the top 200 in education? Not even at the top 10. I mean, I think our education should be right near the top with the money we pour into it.
I agree.
But don't you think that we should be in the top 200? Which means we're like in the bottom 30%.
Right.
And our crime should be at least somewhere in the middle. This is not the thing, I look at that, because like I said, look, we can all interpret data the way we want, but this is the total data. They're not looking at how many, we're down 35% in shots fired or something.
Right.
They're looking at all the crime, and we're still at the top. That, to me, is the issue. Because I could say, well, that kind of analogy just doesn't work. If we determine that, if somebody gets up on the TV tomorrow and says, Chicago's doing a lot better in crime. This weekend we only had 40 people killed instead of 50, which is the average. That's an accurate statement.
Right.
But is 40 people killed on a weekend good? No, something's got to be done. You can't kind of try to sugarcoat this and say, look, I mean, we shouldn't be in the top 10. No. We should be shooting for being something else. And this is one of the problems. Paul likes to make everything, it's all beautiful, we're all going to go to heaven. We just shut up and do what I tell you, and the city's going to be beautiful, because all these developed, they're all going to come riding down on a train to one of the top 10 cities. But this is what people look at. We know that. It's not our opinion, it's a fact. The fact is that when affluent people move to a community, the first thing they look at is crime rate and education system.
As a matter of fact, any realtor will tell you that the first question usually asked by prospective buyers is, what's the education system like? What's the schools like in this neighborhood? What's the crime rate in this neighborhood? What's the police force like? These are questions that they ask. Yeah. Then they ask, what's the taxes? What's the water bill?
How's the educational system? Because I got kids.
That's right. And all of those things come into play on whether or not you want to buy a house. And not only do you want to buy the house, but how much you're willing to pay for that house.
Yeah. We're not making this stuff up,
no.
But I don't know if you people, watch, the other news. Not just, but there was I think it was Buck County. It's a suburb of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. They were actually going to remove themselves from the city of Atlanta so they could have their own police force, because the crime rate in Atlanta, the city of Atlanta had we got a thing saying that it's in its state. It's in this document, which I gave you the website to from Terry Mansfield. So you guys want to explain. You want to see all the pieces of it. But Buck City or whatever, it was a suburb, like the Flint or whatever, you know. They wanted to actually remove themselves because they said that the Atlanta police force was so overtaxed by the crime in Atlanta, Georgia, that they could not get sufficient police protection in their own community. And they were paying a huge amount of the taxes because it's one of the richest parts of Atlanta. So these people were rich enough that we can't do that in Fall River, but they were rich enough to say, you know something, we're going to just secede from Atlanta, create our own community, and hire our own police force. So listen, nobody is trying to diminish this, and we should not try. And again, they attack the messenger. These statistics are actual; they're facts. So I looked up one of my favorite words because this is what Paul is. He is a walking ad hominem. For you people who don't know what an ad hominem is, it's someone, it's an adjective, it describes someone. It's somebody who is marked by attacking opponent's character rather than answering, than to answer for the words that they say on the basis of their merit. It's appealing to feelings or prejudice rather than intellect.
Politician.
A politician. So, you know, and he is an ad hominem because, you see, you become an ad hominem when you have nothing to argue. See, so you attack the people. You attack them. You put labels on. Oh, they're self-appointed. Oh, they're negative. They're this, they're that. Well, like I said, one man's patriot is another man's terrorist.
That's it.
But the bottom line is, look, this isn't us. You know, we're not. These statistics, we didn't make these up, Chief. And you're welcome to come and talk. And I respect what you're doing here. And I respect what the police, they're out there every day putting their lives on the line. And nobody respects that more than I do.
Right.
This is not an attack on the police. It is just a fact that the city of Fall River, and I know you would agree, should be safer. And I'm not looking for a perfect world. I'm just looking for a better and safer Fall River, and I don't think our mayor is doing enough about it because we never hear anything about it.
Well, I'll tell you now. We get the numbers, we have them to back it up, we'll show them where we got them, and we stand by that. And if we're self-appointed watchdogs, so be it. That's a compliment to me. I don't care. I know I'm not somebody who sits around and doesn't do anything and doesn't get involved, nor am I somebody who sits there and tells the politicians what they should do, although I do express myself that way several times. So I want to make you aware that next Monday, a week from today, we will be on the air at 6 p.m. on Channel 95 and at 10 a.m. as usual on our live stream. Because at 5 o'clock will be the North Pole Live event for children. So we will be on the air 6 o'clock on next Monday, and I will remind you over the coming days. And this weekend we're going to have some great events coming up, and hopefully you take part in as many of them as you can, because guess what's coming back? The Children's Holiday Parade.
I can guarantee you one thing, Mr. Mino, mayor in name only, Mr. Hands-On will be at all these little optical events.
Yep. And pictures of him standing behind everybody.
That's right.
Yep. All right, I want to thank you all for watching, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Wednesday.